Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are joined once again by the amazing Dr. Jo Baldwin. Yes, she's so much more than just a coach. A lot of accolades under her we're going to get to, but she's really here helping mostly women around the world in the professional field. And by the way, speaking of, where are you in the world, darling? You're over in England, right?
I am. I'm in England, in the northwest of England. Yes.
Beautiful. Well, we're excited to have you back here. Again, it's Dr. Jo Baldwin Coaching. And to find you online, it's drjobaldwin.co.uk. Please
Right.
tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do. And of course, I can't wait to get into today's topic of procrastination.
Yeah. So I'm a women's coach. I feel that my mission at the moment is to try and bring the oomph and sparkle back into women's lives. So many of us are feeling a little bit burned out, a little bit ragged around the edges with all that life throws at us. And I'm trying to introduce to women a more sustainable way of being, more being than doing, much more sustainable way, but that still allows you to bring impact to everything that you do, to still lead in the workplace, to still be, the affectionate, encouraging mother and wife and partner at home, and just get more out of life, really.
Beautiful. Well, we're excited to have you here. And for today's topic, as I mentioned briefly, it is procrastination. Does everyone know what that word means? I think we all have experienced some form of procrastination in our lives, right? Could you just share a little bit about what that actually is before we begin and maybe what causes it? Yeah, because I feel like, why? Why do we do this? Because all of us have it in us. Tell us the reasoning behind this.
Yeah. So as you alluded to, I think it does affect most of us at some point. And it can be just those little day-to-day things, the little day-to-day tasks that we keep putting off, we don't want to do for whatever reason. But it can also be the reason why some of us aren't always achieving our big goals and our aims in life, or perhaps why we're not taking opportunities when they come our way, or we just don't feel able to make the big decisions that sometimes life throws at us. And I thought it was a good topic to talk about today, because I'm seeing sort of the effects of this in colleagues, in clients and people that I know around me. And when we think about it, time is one of the most precious resources that we have, but it's finite. We can never create more of it. Every second that passes by can't be recovered or regained. And the real kick in the teeth is that none of us know actually how much time we have left. Now, I don't want to sound morose here.
No.
But there's a quote that I heard the other day that sort of fitted in with this. While we hesitate and postpone, life is slipping away. And I wonder if you've ever sort of thought about that yourself, Jill.
Of course I do. I think about it all the time because, I got two little ones and I'm sitting here and there's so much in my life I want to do and accomplish still. But I feel like time gets in the way and I procrastinate. There's piles in my house. I haven't done stuff. Why am I not doing it? But I feel like life is so precious and I want to make the most of it. But it's also about time management, I think, which really gets me with procrastination. I'm sure you'll expand on that in just a moment, but for sure, I feel like that. I think all of us do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's so common to hear clients talking about feeling like they don't have enough time. They're just not getting stuff done. Perhaps they're starting to feel a bit overwhelmed by how much they've got on their plate. And sometimes that leads to just not even knowing where to start. And they then get sort of stuck in inertia, inactivity. And then, as I say, the big things that people aren't taking actions to achieve goals and targets. And I know I've been guilty of this lots of times too. And, I realize that I'm obviously procrastinating when even the housework feels more appealing than perhaps sitting down and, tackling the accounts or preparing, my next blog or whatever. But I'm now trying to be a bit more aware of it and notice that that's what I'm doing and take myself to task and look at, what's underlying this. But I've thought perhaps for some of us, we are procrastinating away our whole happiness and delaying the kind of life that we deserve, or the life that we dream of. So that's why I thought it would be a good topic for today.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to talk more about it to get started. And of course, all the effects of procrastination, what it does to us, our body, our brain, and why in general though. Why did you bring up the topic for today? Just curious.
Yeah, so as I say, it's something that I'm hearing a lot of people talk about. And sometimes what I hear is that women, especially, label themselves as procrastinators,
Yeah.
but alongside that, they hang the label of laziness. And then comes another element of shame, and then another element on top of that of feeling guilty about all the things they're supposed to be doing and perhaps they're not doing. So this is something that sort of people are beating themselves up about, really. And I thought, let's
Absolutely.
get down to the nitty-gritty of what is procrastination and what perhaps isn't, but some people think is, and what
Okay.
are the underlying reasons for what's going on there.
Perfect. So let's distinguish that for us if you don't mind. Let's break it down. What is it? And you mentioned
Okay.
if it's not procrastination, it's called prioritization.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah. So if we think about prioritization as putting off something important until later, then that means perhaps you're avoiding doing the big stuff. You're avoiding doing the big priorities, like making a difficult phone call, having to have a meeting with a difficult client or a difficult employee, the paperwork, the accounts, the taxes. And instead, you find yourself phoning
Yeah.
a friend, reading a magazine, watching the TV, those sorts of things. So that's what I think of as procrastination, something important that you're putting off. Now, if we contrast that with prioritizing, that's putting off something less important
Yeah.
in order to deal with the most pressing matter first. So that's putting things in an order of priority. And if that's what's going on, that's absolutely fine. And it's something that I introduce into a system that I have when we are helping somebody to tackle overwhelm. So when women are really struggling because there's so much going on and they don't know where to start, then I've got a system for tackling that, and that includes a particular prioritization or triage system, if you will. Just a word of caution about prioritizing. Make sure that whatever that urgent matter is, it's urgent for you.
Okay.
And that you're not simply dancing to somebody else's tune. So a lot of times, you perhaps react to somebody else's urgent at the expense of dealing with your own stuff. And I see mums especially doing this all the time. They sacrifice their own plans to deal with something for the children or for their partners. And then she's under pressure because she's got behind with things, the stress builds. At the end of the day, prioritizing is supposed to be a means to reduce our stress levels. And then finally, there's another distinction. The third one is paralysis. So this is a kind of a frozen, stuck state when you just can't seem to make a decision about anything. So nothing ever gets done.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to be making a choice, but there are so many different options, and you're perhaps over-analyzing all the different permutations, what the consequences and outcomes might be, and it just paralyzes you into inertia. So you never make the choice, you never move forwards, you're just stuck. And all of those behaviors, procrastination, prioritizing, and paralysis, they can all appear in relation to little tasks or jobs or chores. But as I mentioned earlier, they can also present when we're facing some of life's big decisions and we're in life transitions. And that's often the time when clients find the coaching process so useful, because that helps to reveal what's going on for them at an individual inner level. And we sort of free the client up from whatever's going on for them there.
Interesting. So what are these inner reasons that we are potentially procrastinating, would you say? Could you share some of them with us?
Why do we procrastinate? Yeah. I mean, the simple answer is it's just often easier to not do something than do it. You know, it's the path of least resistance.
Yep.
But actually, procrastination is kind of the symptom of what's going on internally. And I think it's becoming more common with the modern age.
Yeah.
If you think about it, you know, these days we have far more choices in our lives than ever before. Without choices, we would have just got on and taken the next course of action. You know, our ancestors did not have the degree of choice that we have these days. Also, these days we have so many more distractions vying for our focus, vying for our attention, and a lot of temptations tempting us from doing the thing that's important, but perhaps feels hard or uncomfortable. And then we've also, I think, fallen prey to comparing ourselves with other people. You know, other people's best lives and achievements and successes are constantly being transmitted to us via TV and social media. And then often we perhaps don't feel like we're measuring up and we're fearing judgment. And then that can feed into a hesitancy about taking action. So it's a kind of a vicious cycle. When we procrastinate, we ultimately start to feel dissatisfied by our lack of progress. So we then put greater pressure on ourselves. The tasks, the jobs are all backing up. So we feel more and more stressed. And then we even start to feel guilt and remorse. And the irony here, of course, is that if only we did take action on a task, no matter how small, we would get a hit of that lovely hormone dopamine. And it's the dopamine that results in greater creativity, satisfaction, and gives us the courage to even get on and do more. So that's the kind of some of the background to why I think procrastination is kind of feels like it's at an all-time high these days.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, by the way, just want to remind our listeners, since we're halfway through, how we can reach out to you if we are interested in working with you. Would you mind sharing that?
Sure. So my website is www.drjoebaldwin.co.uk. And that's Dr. Joe, J-O. Or my email address, if you want to get in touch, is joebaldwin.coaching@gmail.com. I'd be more than happy to hear from you directly. Or if you take a look at the website, there's lots of info on how you can work with me. And there are a few different free resources to get you started as well.
So clearly this is getting in the way. This, some of us we have goals, we have dreams, but some of us are not achieving this. And this could be one of the main reasons why, right? And I this is just a great topic today. Again, we're talking about procrastination and also, paralysis. So where did you want to head to next?
Yeah. Well, let's look at some of those inner reasons. Sure. There are lots, but I just thought we'd focus on 3 for today.
Yeah.
I think a big one is fear of failure. And sometimes it's purely the fear of failure because we don't have enough knowledge to do whatever this next task might be. You might have a goal in mind or there's some expectation on you to achieve something, but you don't actually know how to do it. Who can you ask for help with this? True. I'm pretty hopeless at tech and anything to do with computers. And I often found myself in the past frittering away lots of time trying to figure out something for myself or just avoiding doing the job because I didn't know how to do it and I was frightened that I would get it wrong. Swallowing my pride, getting over the embarrassment, I turned to my daughter, 23-year-old daughter, and she showed me how to do things. She gets results. And that renews my momentum for me to get on and do things. So don't let a lack of knowledge or a lack of a skill set stop you from getting on and doing something. There's always somebody else there who can help.
Beautiful.
Then the next one is a lack of flow state.
Okay.
And what I mean by this is when your skill set is equal to the task, equal to the challenge that's facing you, you get into a state of flow and you make progress on that task. You find yourself fully immersed. You don't even notice the time passing. And actually, you take much less energy when you're in this state to get the job done. Now, if you're not skilled enough, you will feel frustrated, or you might even imagine in advance that you're going to get frustrated. You might even feel fear at not being able to do the task and fearing the consequences of what that might be. If the task, on the other hand, isn't challenging enough for you and your ability, your skill set, then you'll experience boredom.
Sure.
So boredom, frustration, fear, and anxiety, we try to avoid all of those negative feelings, and we're more likely to put off the work that would make us feel like that. So instead, we latch on to things that bring us, encouraging positive feelings. So that might be, watching silly videos on social media, or playing a video game, or chatting with friends. Things that give us that little hit of dopamine that I mentioned. So procrastination makes you choose something that will bring you a positive emotion, rather than putting the hard work in now, because you're fearing the negative emotion that might come with it. And then the third one, the final one I thought we'd mention today, is what we call dissonance between your present self and your future self. So this essentially means you'll avoid doing something now that would benefit your future self. So it might mean an exercise class. Your present self is more motivated by the instant gratification of lying on the sofa, watching TV, eating a cake. But really deep inside that your future self wouldn't thank you for that. And you're acting against your best interests by using an avoidance type behavior. So it's as if your present self is divided into two parts. The sensible one wants to get the job done or get the exercise class done. And the other one, the hedonistic one, wants you to do something enjoyable. So you've got these two parts to yourself that are vying for your attention. And it's a case of trying to tune into, what will my future self thank me for? Which task here, which choice here would be more useful for my future self? So it's a case of searching your soul, I suppose, here, and finding out what really does motivate you, what's important for you, for your future self, and therefore what would inspire you to take action to benefit that future self, instead of falling for that instant self-gratification behavior.
Oh, wow. You're resonating with me. Look, but one thing I've been procrastinating, I want to write a book, and I've been procrastinating for years, and my future self would look back and say, what the heck did you do? Why'd you wait so long? Or why didn't you do it at this rate? But you're right. We procrastinate things that we're scared and we're fearful of the unknown, where I'm scared. I don't know how to start. So how do you get someone that motivation to take that leap to start? You got to want it enough, but what else is there to it? We need you. We need someone to hold our hand and say, this is how we do it.
It's envisioning what do I want out of this? What would my future self be looking like, feeling like? What would she be saying when that book's finished? What's important to me about writing that book? What would my future self be saying if I don't write that book?
Horrible.
So what's the first smallest little step I could take today to start that book?
Jot some ideas down.
Yeah.
Just put it on. There's nothing in paper. But I promised my mom before she died that I was going to write the book. And my mom died 7 years ago. But I always wanted to write a book. And then I don't know what you believe in, but I believe in the afterlife and mediums and psychics. And I went to someone and they told me, without me saying anything, your mom's waiting for the book. So I owe it to her, but also myself. And it's just powerful to know that it's one thing in my life I've been procrastinating. Yeah.
Okay. But it feels big, doesn't it? It
does.
feels like a big task.
Huge.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll come back to that one in a little minute then.
Yeah. Go ahead. No.
Okay.
But tell us some examples, if you don't mind, of clients you're working with that are procrastinating. Could you share some things that we procrastinate about?
Oh, crikey. I'm trying to think of what different clients have got going on for them at the moment. Yeah, I've got a client at the moment who is Procrastinating, probably she's a bit more paralyzed actually about a conversation that she needs to have with her husband. Because of some changes that have gone on in their lives recently, and I've got to be careful here about how much I divulge here. Life is looking really different for the two of them, and very different from how she imagined it would be at this stage in their lives. And she knows she needs to have a sit down, serious conversation with him about what she needs, what she wants out of life, and what changes they need to put into place. And she's been really struggling with making a start on that conversation because she's so fearful of what his reaction might be. And we've worked on what would happen, what might happen if you have the conversation, what might happen if you don't have the conversation, what will happen. Sorry, what will happen if you do have the conversation? What will happen if you don't have the conversation? What wouldn't happen if you have the conversation?
Okay.
And what wouldn't happen if you don't have the conversation?
Wow.
And that last one might be the most significant question. What wouldn't happen if you don't have that conversation? Because if you don't have that conversation, the things that you're dreaming of, that you're hoping for, that you're wishing for, are never going to happen, are they?
Nope.
So that in itself might be enough of a motivator for some people to take that action. Just knowing that without taking the action, certain things will never happen. Because sometimes there's sort of a wishful thinking sense that goes on within us. And we're just hoping that somehow life will make it happen.
All right.
But actually, we do have to take a lot of responsibility for what happens in our life.
So how can we reduce this procrastination?
Yeah. Sometimes we've just got to start. If we don't start, we'll never know.
Yeah.
And when I talk to people who feel very overwhelmed with things and feel like they have too much on their plate, I introduce them to what I call the Overwhelm First Aid Kit. And that's a system for an acute situation where it just all feels too much.
Okay. Yeah.
We do some prioritization. We look at what can be delegated, what can be ditched altogether, and we sort of simplify things. Then another one is looking at your energy levels. And perhaps it's that the task itself isn't actually too hard or difficult or uncomfortable. It's that at the moment you're exhausted and you just need to replenish your energy levels. Yeah. And maybe then when you come back to the task, it won't feel quite so insurmountable anymore.
Beautifully said.
And then still on energy, consider what are your natural energy rhythms? The circadian rhythms. Do you know where your strengths are? Are you an owl or a lark? Are you better off doing certain types of work early in the day or later in the day? So think about your schedule and putting things, at the time of day that you're best able to deal with those things.
Okay.
Now that's not always easy if depending on what kind of workplace scenario you have. But it might be that now and again you can tweak your schedule a little bit to put certain things into place when you are at your best and you can have some sort of clear and focused time for them. And then one of the big ones is breaking things down. So talking about you and your goal of writing a book, Jill, that's a huge task. Absolutely, it's enormous, isn't it, when you think about all that's involved in writing a book. So break it down into small steps, not great big chunks, things that feel manageable. It might be, I'm going to allocate a certain day or a certain portion of a day each week to writing. And that becomes sort of sacrosanct. It's precious time that's just allocated for that.
But
And
it's
in that, I'm
habitual.
just
Yeah.
going to write a certain number of words,
Yeah.
or I'm just going to write the skeleton outline. So break it down into small steps,
Okay.
but then celebrate each step when they happen.
Okay.
Don't wait for the entire thing to be done before you reward yourself and celebrate. Another one for getting started with something that feels hard or something that you don't really like doing is just to tell yourself you only have to do it for 5 minutes. That's all you have to commit to, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And at the end of 5 minutes, you can walk away from it.
Okay.
If at the end of 5 minutes, actually, it doesn't feel so bad and you're getting into flow with it and there's time to carry on, oftentimes people do carry on. But the initial commitment only has to be 5 minutes. And that doesn't feel so bad then, does it?
No, you're right.
And then another one that might feel contrary to what we're talking about trying to get things started. But actually, it might be that there's just no momentum going on for you. So to get momentum going, why don't you try finishing a few things? Give yourself 10 minutes to go around the house or sit around the office and look at uncompleted jobs. You know, it might be putting the laundry away, tidying up the kitchen after the dinner, finishing that set of accounts or whatever it might be, boxing off the emails and just tidying the desk. And just finishing things just sort of clears the mind a little bit.
Sure does.
But it also gets the momentum going.
Perfect. And that's what we got to do. With our final thoughts, we got to wrap up the show here. Oh gosh, we're out of time.
Wow.
Always happens. All right. So Dr. Jo Baldwin, how did you want to end off and how can we reach you?
And just to finish off by saying, procrastinating over, the simple day-to-day tasks can leave us feeling really frustrated and stressed. And, why reduce your quality of life and put up with that just for the sake of cracking on with a few tedious jobs? So think about some of those tips to get yourself going. But I really don't want people to be delaying or postponing life itself. Don't let life slip past you. Think about what's your big why in life. What's your reason for what you want to do and where you want to go? And keep that at front of mind to help motivate you. So many times we hear people say, well, I'll be happy when I've got a new job, I've met the right man. I'll buy new clothes when I've lost the weight.
Yeah.
But happiness comes from what you're doing now. Do what makes you happy now. Don't wait. Take action. Don't put it off. Don't postpone it.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Jo Baldwin, how can we reach you?
My website is drjobaldwin.co.uk and you can email me on jobaldwin.coaching@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here. To all of our listeners, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.